I'm here.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so first of all, how long were you incarcerated?
A little over a year.
A little over, and was that mostly at Lowell or FWRC?
Well, I spent maybe 3 months at FWRC around that, and then the rest of the time was at Lowell.
Okay. Okay. And can I ask what your charges were?
I had two battery on law enforcement, an illegal discharge of a firearm, um, possession of a firearm while intoxicated, resisting arrest with and without violence, which I don't know how that works, but I got it. But yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's weird. And how long were you sentenced for?
A year and a day was my sentence.
And then probation?
No, I came home and then I had gotten in trouble again. Um, and that's why I'm on community control and probation and all that.
Okay, so, which you're almost off of, right?
Yes. Yep. Next
Yes.
Saturday I will be done.
Oh, good. Have to have a party.
Yes.
And so just briefly, can you tell me what your childhood was like?
My childhood was hard. So a lot of people on the outside, my childhood looked great. Parents had a lot of money. I started my own cleaning company when I was 15. So, I had a lot going for me, but I was going through a lot. My dad was really abusive. Um, I came from foster care and I was adopted. Foster care was hard. I was placed in abusive homes and shoved up in attics, and I had to eat and sleep and go to the bathroom up there. I was beaten with thorn branches. And then I was adopted, and although I was adopted into a better family who could provide for me, my dad used to beat me, threw me through a sliding glass door, uh, used to choke me with belts or try to smother me with pillows, try to drown me in a bathtub. Uh,
Oh my,
yeah, like, so it was hard, but I mean, a lot of people didn't see that. They saw, my perfect parents, and they saw what my parents wanted them to. So I had a hard childhood, but I graduated from high school with all honors, and but during that time I was running away and gang banging and doing what
oh.
no kid should be doing.
How old were you when you were adopted?
I was 5 when I was adopted.
Okay. So were you in foster care for the first 5 years, basically?
Yet I was removed from my mom as a baby, and then I was put into the foster care system, and I was put with my grandparents, but my mom didn't like that, so she fought to have us removed from their care, so then we went into the system.
Wow. So can you tell me the experiences that you've had with the guards as far as abuse, calling you names, or inappropriate use of force?
Well, I was at Lowell and I was at FWRC for my intake, the reception center. I had more problems at FWRC than I did at Lowell. I did have problems at Lowell, obviously, but at FWRC during my intake, when I got off the bus, they already knew who I was. They they knew my name, you know, better than they knew any of the other inmates' names, and they knew mine because I was specifically there for battery on law enforcement. And they didn't like that very much, and they knew that I worked armed security beforehand, so they kind of jumped on me about that, and they told me I wouldn't make it long there, and threatened to, spray me and all types of stuff. And the first thing the officer said to me was, "Hey, you ever been sprayed before?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I worked armed security. I carried a firearm. I carried all types of things. I carried a taser, I carried OC spray." So So the lady behind the window was like, "Oh yeah, this is the security guard," and he was like, "Oh, you're not gonna make it very long here, Hunter." So, and even through intake, you know, they threatened me with confinement and things like that. And then once I finally got onto the compound, I think I made it like 10 days or something like that. And then I was put in confinement because an officer, we were going to chow to eat, and I was just singing to myself under my breath. It wasn't loud. Nobody could really hear it unless they were like right next to me. But an officer saw my mouth moving and assumed that I was talking to another inmate, which during our R&O, we're not allowed to communicate with other inmates during chow, apparently. Um, so he put me on the wall and he was like, why were you talking to another inmate? And I told him that I wasn't. And he said I was calling him a liar, and he was calling me a liar. And I kind of laughed at it. I was just kind of like, well, you know, I wasn't. So, you know, whatever. So he cuffed me up and he took me to lock. I spent like a week and a half or 2 weeks in lock. And then I got out. And I mean, when I was going to lock, he was like, "Oh, you're going to get 60 days and 120 days loss of game time. And your game time hasn't even started," and all types of stuff, you know, just trying to, you know, intimidate me. And it didn't work. I got out and I saw him again. And I was just kind of like, "Oh, the 60 days really killed me," which he didn't like very much. But, you know, I was just kind of like, whatever, you know, you want to push my buttons, I can do it back type thing. But you know, and then I had another one that actually ended up in use of force. A lady I had come to FWRC with, I came from county with her, and she had been complaining of chest pains, and she went to medical, and they sent her back to the dorm, and she ended up collapsing in the dorm. So when the stretcher came in, you know, they allowed me to stay with her because she wanted me there. Like, I was holding her hand, and like the doctor came through with the stretcher, and I had to help the doctor put her on the stretcher, and I had to like run her down to medical and, you know, help them, you know, get her situated. And by the time I left, I was in tears. And I was in tears because before I went to county, I lost my mother, my birth mother, my biological mother. She died, and she died from a heart attack due to methamphetamines. And the lady that I went with, her name was Sherry, which was my birth mother's name. So not only was, you know, and she was like a mother figure to me in county. So not only was she somebody that meant a lot to me, you know, and I was watching this happen, and I had just lost my mom. And, you know, I saw the same thing happen to my mother. So it was hard. So I started, you know, I was crying, and I came back, and like I left and I went to chow. They sent me to chow. And I was in chow line, but I was crying. So people were walking by and like, "Hey, you okay? Like, you all right?" The people were talking to me, and the officers, you know, Sergeant P, he was like, "Oh, no talking, da 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 da." And then somebody came by and asked me something. And I was like, "I don't want to talk." And then he put me on the fence. And I was like, "What did I do? I didn't do anything." And he started, you know, talking crap to me. And I was just like, "All right." And I was like, "Fuck it." So I went to the fence, and he was like, "What did you just tell me? Did you just say fuck you to me?" And I was like, "You know what, whatever." And I was just like, "Yeah, fuck this. Like, I'm not worried about it." So he cuffed me up, and he took me to the captain's office, and he told the captain that I was, you know, telling him that he was a bitch in a uniform, and hiding behind a badge and all this, you know, stuff that I hadn't said. You know, like, I wasn't even worried about him. And when we got to the captain's office, he told the captain that, and I told the captain, I was like, "Your officer is lying right now. Your officer is flat out lying to you." And he didn't like that very much, but the captain still believed him. And he was walking me to the gate to take me into the interlock. And the captain yelled and asked what my name was. And my name badge was on the front of my shirt. So he had his hand on my sleeve, and he yanked me back as we were walking forward. He didn't tell me to stop. He just yanked me back, and his hand slipped from my shirt. I didn't move. I just turned my head to him because I already knew what was coming. And from there, he tried to kick out my legs. and he managed to kick one out. But I still remained standing. And then I brought myself down. And as I brought myself down to the ground, he got on top of me like I was, you would have thought I was flailing around trying to, hurt him. And he put his arm over my neck. And when I came to prison, I had just gotten into a car accident a couple months prior, and I had fractured my neck. And I told him, I was like, look, can you, shift your weight off of my neck because it's fractured. And I told the captain, I was like, can you please tell your officer to shift his weight off of my neck? He had his knee in my back, his arm on my neck, put in all his weight. And the captain told me to stop resisting, or I would be lucky his officer didn't snap it. And I was like, wow, this is garbage. But at that point, the cameras weren't there yet. The team that comes with the camera to escort you on video and to document everything that happens wasn't there yet. So when they got there, they came, and the officers that picked me up off the ground, I was like, look, man, I didn't do anything. I'm not that person. I'm the one always laughing, and trying to keep everybody happy. I wasn't that type of person that I just, cause a problem to cause it. And so they took me into medical, and I started having some breathing issues, and they didn't really care. They were like, no, you're doing it to yourself. You're going to make yourself pass out. And I'm like, I can't help it. I have asthma. So they put me in confinement, and I was, they documented some of my injuries or whatever. But when I went into lock, they hadn't documented everything, and they were just going to let it be. My knee was bleeding. By the second day, my leg was swollen. It was black. I couldn't get up out of bed. My bunkie in confinement had to help me sit up, because I couldn't get up because of my injuries prior to. And then what the officer had done had irritated it so much that I could not get up by myself. And I wrote a statement. I made statement after statement, requested to talk to, the IG, requested everything I could. And I was in lock for a long time. Until I went to Lowell, I was in lock. When I got moved to Lowell, I still didn't see the IG until, probably, a couple months before I had to go home. I saw the IG, and she came in and she asked for my statement and everything. But the whole time I was there, I was never given an inhaler. Actually, how I got an inhaler was because one of the other girls had an extra one, and she gave it to me. And then I had a medical emergency where the inhaler only does so much, and it was past that point. So I had to go to medical, and they saw that I had an inhaler, but that was way down the line. That was I probably had like 3 or 4 months left before I came home when I actually had an inhaler. And but when I moved from FWRC to Lowell, my breathing issues got worse, and it got to the point that I was spitting up blood when I would have an asthma attack. And the tiniest things would set it off. It could be a change in the climate. So I go from being outside in a hot condition to being in a cold condition. It would put stress on my lungs to a point that would happen. It could be a dust thing. It could be 1,000 things that could set it off. But but a lot of them thought that I was joking. They thought that I was lying. They thought, it was just bullshit and I was just messing with them. So they never really cared for me. But they never sent me out for it. It was garbage. Like I spent months, they put me in the kitchen. I couldn't be around chemicals that would set it off. I would, immediately I'd be there 20 minutes and I'd start having a breathing issue and I'd have to go down. And it was so bad that at times they had to give me shots of steroids for my lungs to stop. And, those things never got better for me. It was a constant medical emergency. until right before I got home when we had good nurses on. They were like, why haven't you been sent out for this? I would have sent you out, you know, months and months ago. Why do you not have an inhaler? And, you know, it took a long time for me to get out of the kitchen, you know, and they would threaten me. The captain came into the kitchen one day and actually threatened to put me in confinement because he said that I was lying about spitting up blood when I was clearly spitting up blood. And I actually spit it on the floor because they had me in handcuffs. And I asked for a cup, you know, so I could, you know, spit in that so it wasn't unhygienic. And they just put a cup on the edge of a table in the office in the kitchen with me still handcuffed, so I could behind my back, so I couldn't do anything. So I was like, okay, you want to play it that way? And I spat it on the floor, and I was like, what do you want me to do? You know, and forever they put me in quarantine because they thought I had TB. I swear to you, they tested me probably 8 times for TB. Every time came up negative, but it didn't matter. They kept doing it because that's what they swore it was. And I was like, look, that's not what it is. And then they finally let me out of quarantine and they kept me in medical. And from there, you know, I just went back onto the compound. And I would do breathing treatments whenever I couldn't control my asthma. And it got so bad that, you know, even after leaving Lowell, I was hospitalized. I spent a week in ICU. I was intubated because I had an asthma attack and I was spitting blood, and my right lung aspirated. It filled with fluid. I was, you know, so I was completely hospitalized. And now you know, I have to take breathing treatments every 4 to 6 hours, you know, because of their mistreatment of something that could have been prevented. That's my life.
Wow. So, Amanda, other than the guards and medical, what would you say is I guess you would call it the third worst thing at Lowell, whether it's lack of programs or food or recreation?
I'd have to say the necessities, the things that you need, you know, hygiene, things like that. Like the things that they provide you with. You know, some people, you know, have skincare needs that they have to take care of that, you know, they're not provided with those things. And it's so hard to get something medically approved so that you can get it. And, you know, and even, you know, tampons, pads, things like that, you know, they're so hard to get. Like you can get them. Obviously, they have to give you pads and they have to give you toilet paper and things like that. But one roll of toilet paper doesn't last somebody a month. You get, and when you run out, if you go to, you know, the bubble, which is their office inside the dorms, and you say, hey, can I get some toilet paper? They give you a little bit. They'll roll it off, but half the time, I mean, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? You know, they'll give you the tiniest amount, or sometimes they'll throw it out of the bubble, you know, to watch everybody run and try to get it. And just, you know, they get kicks out of those things. And, you know, it's hard. Like, you know, there's so many things there that need work. You know, the food is garbage. It is complete and utter garbage. I had a roach cooked into my coffee cake, you know, and they tried to serve it to me, and I was like, what is this? And, you know, then they tried to give me another tray, and I'm like, yo, this is probably from the same thing. This is probably just a different part. Like, why is that okay? That's not okay, ever. You know, there's so many things, you know, but then you have those inmates that are, you know, taking the food from the kitchen, or they'll make their own things and then they'll, you know, sneak it out of the kitchen and then sell it in the dorms. But the food that they bring back to the dorms, everybody buys because it's good. You know, it's what they want. But it takes away from the food that's served in chow. You know, and a lot of the officers contribute to it. But I mean, but at the same time, it looks out for those who can pay for it. You know, if you don't have the money, then, you know, you got to barter, you got to figure it out, you got to trade something to get it. But, you know, it's hard in there. In there, it comes down to survival of the fittest for some. And, you know, everywhere you turn, there's some type of something going on there. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on with guards and inmates, and, you know, a lot of people use that to their advantage, because some guards, they're so obvious with it that, you know, once you find out, it's like y'all's little secret, and, you know, they'll look out for you because you know. But I mean, I didn't have any physical abuse at Lowell. I mean, I had some, you know, hard-headed ass officers that would, you know, talk slick to me, but, you know, and then when you turn around and you call them an asshole, then you're going to confinement. Well, a lot of people saw a way around that. They would just psych out, and then they'd walk them down to, you know, the psych department, and then you go talk to somebody for 5 seconds, and then you'd be good. And they couldn't send you to confinement for psyching out, because, you know, it's a psychological break, as they call it. You know, so it's like you can't be responsible for your own actions at that point, basically. But, you know, there's so many things. Like, my stay was good. I made the best out of it, because I always was the positive one. I wasn't, you know, like a negative person there. You know, I always tried to see the best in things, which it was hard because, you know, my family wasn't there for me. You know, I barely talked to my son. You know, I would write, and I had some people that wrote me while I was there. A lot of people drifted away. My family probably wrote me 5 letters the whole time I was there, and would barely answer the phone. So it was hard, but, you know, I had a great support, a great backbone within, you know, prison with with other inmates there, which made my stay easier. But then, you know, you always see something. There's always something going on. There's always a fight. There's always people bringing stuff in. You know, you have those corrupt officers. You have the officers that'll call you a bitch and all types of stuff, that'll threaten you. You know, they'll threaten to knock your teeth down your throat. That'll, you know, step out of line, and they do it because they know they can. You know, so I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be worked on. You know, having access to everyday necessities that we need. I mean, how do you run out of pads? How do you run out of toilet paper in a women's prison facility? I can't understand that. That'd be something that you would inventory, you know, all the time to make sure that those things were there. But yet that was their excuse. You know, hey, I need a pad. Hey, I need some toilet paper. Oh, we're out. We don't have any. All the time.
Wow. Wow.
It didn't matter. They would. I mean, when I was in confinement, you know, I was in there with a girl. Literally sat on the toilet all day, asking them for a pad. You know, sat on the toilet so she didn't bleed on herself. Asking them for a pad. Asking them for anything, and they just said, "Oh, well, remind me on my next round. Oh, I got to look for some. Oh, we don't have any right now. Oh, we got to get it from here." It was always excuse after excuse after excuse, and they don't care. Their needs are met. They can do what they want when they want to. They can have somebody bring them anything, you know, and they're quick to lie on you if, you know, you get out of line, or you get, you know, upset about the fact that they're not taking care of you. Then it's, you know, oh, you want a DR? You know, do you want to be written up? Do you want to go to lock? Oh, I can make that DR stick. That's the thing. I can write one hell of a DR, and I'll make that sucker stick. Basically saying they will lie on you and put whatever they want in that paperwork to make sure you get whatever they want you to.
Wow. Wow. So has your stay in prison, has that affected you any way on the outside as far as psychologically, physically, we know because of your health issues, mentally, job-wise?
Job wise hasn't like really affected me. I mean, when I first came home, it was hard for me to like uh, get used to the fact of, even though I was there for a short time, like going to Walmart, you know, going to places, like it was overwhelming. Like I couldn't be around people like that for the first bit when I came home. Like I could be somewhere, but then I'd be like, nah, I want to go home. Like I didn't really want to be around a lot of people. You know, I didn't want to be out in the open. I didn't want it, you know, and then going to sleep was a problem for me. Like even though like I never had anybody do anything to me in my sleep, and like it was never anything like that. It was just that mindset. You know, you have that freedom. You're able to walk out of a door. You know, you can go where you want, but in there you can't, and you're so used to that. You're so used to the guards walking around checking on you, and you know everything going on. And so when I came home, it was hard for me to fall asleep. I would stay up all night and I would sleep during the day. Um, for me, I guess it was more of a comfort thing than anything. Um, I mean, I've always been a night person, but I've never, even when I was super tired and I just needed to go to sleep, I couldn't. I would stay up, and once the sun came up, I would go to sleep.
Wow. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up. Is there anything else that you would like to say regarding the prison system or anything?
Um, Not really. I mean, other than like, I'm so happy that y'all, you know, are doing this, because so many people don't understand. A lot of people think that, oh, you did the crime, do the time, but they don't understand. Like, I scored out 34 points. I didn't even score high enough to go to prison. 44 points is what you have to score to go to prison. And I scored 34. And I still went to prison. Like, people don't understand. They think that, you know, everybody behind these walls are murderers and, you know, these big time, you know, kingpins, and they're not. You know, some people are in there for tiny things. You know, you can't group everybody in prison into one big thing and say that they're all horrible. You know, and
Right.
you know, this group, and you know, working with Iris, the people like that, people like this, you know, hopefully will open people's eyes and let them see that this is real. Like this isn't a joke when people say that people are falsely imprisoned, that people, you know, are in there for minor things, you know. And I couldn't be more thankful for groups like this, and like people who, you know, can have their names out there and can put the word out there to others and make them see so, you know, so differently. And you know, I just hopefully it gets to the right place and things start to change, because it starts at the top. It, it starts at the top and it goes all the way down to the officers. Once you have one corrupt person in there, it stops everything, all your complaints, everything that those people are doing to your family, your friends. It stops at that corrupt officer. It doesn't always go up the chain. So if you don't have people out here fighting for you, you don't have a fighting chance.
Right. Okay, Amanda. Well, I want to thank you so much for helping with the cause, and we just have to keep trying, keep going, and I just know in my heart that eventually something's going to happen, and because this just can't continue.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean,
can't.
it started to happen. I mean, a lot of the officers are being removed. A lot of them are being walked off. I mean, the chaplain, you know, being walked off, although he wasn't arrested. You know, those things, like when you've blatantly in your face, like you've been caught. I don't understand why those, you know, they don't have repercussions right then and there. You know, this person's still allowed to be free, and then after investigation, for whatever reason, it's justified. But I mean, it
Right.
started. You know, some officers are being convicted, and you know, hell, some
Not very many.
judges are being convicted. You know, and hopefully it'll start that chain reaction, and officers and sergeants and LTs and captains will start realizing that, hey, you're not untouchable.
Right.
But
Right.
it's slowly but surely. But these groups and people like you and me and everybody else in here that are, you know, willing to stand up are what is making that change.
Right. Okay, Amanda. Well, thank you so much, sweetheart, and we'll just keep on going.
That's right. One foot in front of the other.
Yep.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay.